Before legends turn into reality, no island was ever truly alone. But sometimes, being alone is like killing the island itself. You probably didn't understand much from this. To understand, listen to the story until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. By the way, subscribing is free. A group of adventurers plans to camp on a remote island. The island was barely visible on maps, a place thought to be undiscovered. According to ancient legends, the island had been cursed years ago, and a dark shadow had fallen over it. However, the group, undeterred by these stories, set off in search of adventure, believing the few days they'd spend on the island would provide them with an unforgettable experience. On the first day, everything begins perfectly. The island's beautiful beaches, forests, and clear waters seem like the perfect vacation for the group. In the evenings, they gather around the fire, telling old stories, watching the stars glittering in the sky. But as the night progresses, something strange starts to happen. Suddenly, everyone begins to hear the voices of others, voices that don't belong to anyone in their group. There is another voice, but no one can see who it belongs to. On the second night, one of them screams in the middle of the night. Everyone rushes outside, but nothing is found. The next day, a portion of the group decides to explore the other side of the island. As they venture deeper into the island's interior, the whispering sounds from the forest begin to disturb them. They come across the ruins of an ancient settlement that once existed here, a stone temple, dilapidated houses, and a dark forest casting long shadows. In the middle of the ruins, they notice strange symbols carved into a stone. As night falls, they decide to return to their campsite, but they find themselves lost on the island. One by one, their friends begin to disappear into the darkness, and they slowly start to realize that the island's strange powers are real. The abandoned island has been patiently waiting to draw them into its cosmic trap. With every step they take, they unknowingly enter another dimension. The island grows darker with each passing day, determined to consume every visitor. One night, someone disappears without a trace. The group sets out to search for them, only to discover that their missing friend, deep in the island's interior, is no longer the person they once knew. The island has twisted them, and they are no longer human. Over time, the island has become a trap, and only those who know its secrets, those who once lived there, are allowed to keep others from escaping. The island allows no one to leave. At the end of the second day, as the group tries to come together, the missing person and strange events relentlessly follow them. The island becomes more terrifying with each passing minute. Sudden changes in weather turn night into day, and a brief fog and darkness make the group feel completely isolated. As they drift apart, anyone who disappears never returns. The mysterious symbols appear to be a form of writing distant from modern languages, unsolvable. A group decides to take a closer look at the temple. The temple's walls are worn down over time, with traces of lost ancient writings on their surfaces. The most striking feature is a symbol carved into the stone in the center: "Do not think of returning." The group's leader, Cole, realizes that this inscription signifies danger. However, the others set aside their fears and decide to venture deeper. When they enter, they encounter a room with a massive stone statue. The statue depicts an ancient goddess figure. At that moment, the statue's eyes suddenly begin to glow. But this is not just an illusion. Each of them suddenly feels a deep emptiness in their eyes. In that instant, the statue begins to move slowly, and the air in the room becomes unbearably heavy. The group decides to split up again. They plan to return to their separate campsites for the night, but everything on the island has strangely changed. The beach now appears farther away than ever before. The sounds, which were once the whispers of the wind, now seem like screams. After a while, one person realizes they can't see anyone else around. They are alone. They scream in fear, but the only sound they hear is the echo of their own voice. Then, suddenly, a figure appears. Turning left, They see one of their missing friends, Mia. But Mia looks strangely pale, her eyes unnaturally large, and it feels as though everything around her is moving in slow motion. The words coming from Mia's lips are heard muffled, as if echoing in someone's head. "We will stay here forever," she says, and a twisted smile appears on her face. The group decides to run towards Mia, but no matter how much they run, they suddenly realize they have changed positions. When they turn around, their campsite is gone. Apart from a few marks on the ground, there is nothing else. Only 3 people remain. They quickly move deeper into the island to find their lost friends. But every path they take leads them further into a darker area. With every step, an unfamiliar sensation emerges on the island. Are they being followed by someone, or is the island itself watching them? The unease they feel throughout eventually transforms into real fear. At one point, they come across an old boat with nothing in it. This boat is a smaller version of the old ship they saw that morning before arriving on the island. Somehow, the boat has been moved to the farthest corner of the island, though no one knows how. They board the boat, but suddenly, everything changes very quickly. A blurry darkness fills their vision, and the sea oddly seems to swallow them. The waters of the river begin to grow darker with each passing minute. The boat nearly capsizes. Then, suddenly, a scream is heard. Someone falls from the boat, but no one can save them. The water rapidly consumes the boat, and the island is left behind. And one thing is certain: do not think of returning. A group of friends decides to get away from the city and spend a peaceful weekend in nature at an abandoned campsite. Located in a remote area, this place, which hasn't been visited in years, is so difficult to find that it barely appears on old maps. The campsite by the lake is surrounded by a forest and is marked by a few decaying trees and an abandoned dock from ancient times. On the first day, everything goes as expected. They sit around the campfire, sing songs, and watch the stars. However, at midnight, they see a strange light reflected on the lake. No one can figure out what it is. Some think it's just moonlight reflecting on the water, while others feel that something is watching them. Despite feeling uneasy, they manage to sleep through the night. On the second day, when they wake up, they notice that the campsite is slightly more disheveled. Some of their belongings inside the tents have been moved, and there are large footprints around the dock. No one knows what these footprints belong to, but a hum coming from the depths of the forest sends chills down their spines. There's such an intense silence that, along with the hum, they begin to hear a voice, as if a child is whispering. As they walk towards the riverbank, a figure moves in the water, but it's too fast for anyone to see clearly. On the third day, the group decides to go kayaking on the lake. As they paddle out, the weather suddenly starts to darken. Fog quickly surrounds them, and as the fog thickens, a figure starts to appear in front of them. They all look at each other, but no one can make out who the figure is. Suddenly, the kayaks rock violently, and a scream is heard. The kayaks begin to sink. The water slowly rises, but just as they try to stabilize the boat, it capsizes, and they are thrown into the lake. One of their friends disappears. A final scream and a splash are heard. The remaining group members abandon the kayaks and begin swimming toward the shore. However, every time they dive into the water, the ground beneath their feet shifts, and they suddenly feel like they are falling into an endless void. As they struggle to stay above the surface, another scream is heard, but this time, it's not a human voice. It sounds much older, far more terrifying. The group manages to reach the shore, but when they return to the campsite, everything has changed. The tents are gone, and the spot where the fire once was is now just a dark mark. It's as if nothing was ever there. However, one thing remains clear. The echo of a child's voice calling their name comes from the shore, but no one can be seen. A group of friends decides to escape to the wilderness for a weekend getaway in an abandoned campsite deep in the forest. This campsite, and used for years, is only known by its ruins and deserted buildings, located in an isolated area. In the middle of the campsite lies an old, abandoned pond, surrounded by moss-covered stones and decaying trees. On the first day, Everything goes as expected. They set up their tents, light a campfire, and share old stories with friends throughout the night. However, at midnight, a strange hum from the edge of the pond catches the attention of the whole group. After a while, one of them suggests that the hum is actually the sound of something coming from beneath the water, but others look at them skeptically, and they all continue to sleep. The next morning, when the group wakes up, they find a small boat by the pond. The boat looks old and abandoned, but there are fresh footprints inside. No one can figure out where the boat came from, but it seems someone has used it recently. Curious, a few friends decide to get in the boat and venture out onto the pond. As the boat moves further into the water, suddenly the sky begins to darken, and a thick fog rapidly envelopes them. The fog becomes so dense that nothing around them is visible. The boat is rocked by an abrupt wave. The friends feel something moving in the pond, but they can't see what it is through the fog. Suddenly, a cold hand reaches up from beneath the boat and grabs one of their legs. Struggling, they fall out of the boat and begin to sink into the water. One of their friends disappears into the water. They search frantically but find nothing in the pond. Without finding the missing friend, another one vanishes as well. Panicking, they swim toward the shore, but they still feel something moving toward them in the water. Each time the waves hit, they hear a terrifying voice coming from the depths of the pond. When they finally reach the shore, they realize they are completely alone. But when they return to their campsite, everything has changed. Their tents are gone, and the spot where the campfire was is now just a cold mark. As they look around in fear, they suddenly hear a whisper, "You can't find me." When they reach the edge of the pond, a silhouette begins to appear. But this silhouette is a figure rising from the depths of the water. Slowly, a hand emerges from the water and begins to pull the last person in the group. Screaming in terror, the others rush toward the figure, but it disappears. Only the footprints left in the water remain. The hum from the pond once again fills the air, and it spreads across the entire forest. The group decides to escape the area, but with each step, things get worse. Throughout the night, they hear voices, but they never see anyone. Eventually, when they finally leave the abandoned campsite behind, it seems the voices and hums are gone, but a shadow still follows them. And every night by the pond, the same voice is heard once again, "You can't find me."